The 7 deadly sins are a grouping of vices classified by the Christian faith as pride, greed, wrath, envy, lust, gluttony, and sloth. Throughout history, these 7 deadly sins have been used to label individuals and their sinful actions, and today we're going to apply them to Major League Baseball. There are 7 teams that I believe represent the 7 deadly sins, and I'll be going over all of them, starting with greed. Who better to represent that sin than the Orioles? Greed is defined as an inordinate desire to acquire more than one needs, with money or power being the primary thing that greedy people are looking to secure more of. That summed up the Orioles situation perfectly for the last decade, with greedy ownership running the show, refusing to sign their star players to long-term deals, tanking for several years, and taking more and more prospects than they could ever hope to use, basically just leaving them with nowhere to play and being forced to sit on the bench while they all wait for a major trade to consolidate them. But why do the Orioles have such a massive greed problem? Well, that comes from the Angelos, the family that used to have ownership over the Orioles up until very recently. See, the Angelos family had a popular reputation for being incredibly cheap, and that showed up in how they ran the Baltimore Orioles. Of course they wanted the Orioles to win, but they made sure to go about it in the cheapest, most inexpensive way possible. For years, the Orioles have signed young talent like catcher Adley Rutschman, third baseman Gunnar Henderson, and starting pitchers like Kyle Bradish and Grayson Rodriguez. The amount of prospects that the Orioles have is pretty impressive. It's fine to try and win the World Series with up-and-coming talent, but the Orioles have made a mistake. Well, not really a mistake since they meant to do something greedy like this, and that's to pay them as low as an amount as possible. The Orioles have one of the smallest payrolls at this point in time, coming in at 26th in the league for a payroll size with just over $100 million total. Lack of pay for long-term contracts mean that these players are likely going to try and find new homes with other teams once their shorter contracts expire, simply because they'll be paid more for the same amount of work. That's just business. And the Angelos and the Baltimore Orioles have let greed get in the way of good business for baseball. However, it seems that the Orioles could be turning over a new leaf. The Angelo family has sold their controlling stake, and many fans are excited to see the future of the Orioles led by Dave Rubenstein, especially since the team signed ace pitcher Corbin Burnes right after taking over. From what I've seen, he appears to be a massive fan, and more importantly, he hasn't done anything to piss off fans yet. So maybe this is the end of the Orioles' current greed streak, but we shouldn't forget just how greedy they were. Sloth, or the absence of interest or habitual disinclination to exertion, is definitely the Oakland A's, who seem to be more and more disinterested in building a team that can actually win. Their record, stadium, and games are pretty rough to look at, and it doesn't seem like things are going to get any better anytime soon. How come the A's have succumbed to sloth this bad? Well, it's actually very similar to the problem that plagued the Orioles and earned them their spot on the 7 deadly sins list. Since 2005, the Oakland A's have been owned by John Fisher, a man who's become known as an incredible cheapskate. Despite some periods of objective success for the A's, they were usually met with periods of major non-contention because the A's were more focused on selling off their best players and waiting for more prospects to trickle in at a significantly cheaper rate. Honestly, the A's have been lucky that their baseball operations department is good with analytics, because if it wasn't for them, the team would be even worse, if that's even possible. On top of that, the team has recently purchased land in Las Vegas, Nevada, and plans to relocate there by the time construction is done in 2028. Since their current lease at the Oakland Coliseum will be done when the 2024 season comes to a close, the team will also be temporarily located in Sacramento for the 2025 to 2027 seasons. Seems like they're more focused on cost-cutting ventures than actually winning games. The definition of a sloth team if I've ever seen one. It's clear that the goal of the Oakland A's was to sell off any profitable assets, including players, and that lack of energy towards actually winning games shows in their turnout. For the past few seasons, the A's have had a ridiculous low turnout, and the A's have met that decline in fans with even stupider choices, like raising ticket prices and removing season pass holders' discounts on food and merchandise. It really shows where the A's priorities lie right now, not with baseball or the fans. Gluttony is described as an overindulgence or overconsumption of anything to the point of waste. This best encapsulates the San Diego Padres and their overconsumption of shortstops to the point that their they're taking away roster spots that should have probably gone to other players. There's nothing wrong with your team having a good shortstop, maybe even a couple, but the Padres have taken so many versatile shortstops and converted them into other positions that they could potentially field a lineup with a converted shortstop at every single position except the catcher. That's taking things to such an extreme that I thought they deserved Gluttony spot on the 7 deadly sins list. The Padres have had a peculiar track record recently of collecting an entire lineup of shortstops. Technically, they don't all currently play shortstop, but the majority of their lineup started their career or have had some major experience playing in that specific position, and there doesn't seem to be a rational reason for it. It's not like they're making their team any better. I mean, have you seen their record so far this season? Not great. See, the Padres had a period of time where they were signing major talent left and right in order to bolster their defensive capabilities. The only issue is that majority of these players they scooped up were shortstops, so now they're stuck positioning them in places that they don't have as much experience playing, which would explain some of their shortcomings the Padres have had in recent years, especially when it comes to defensive work. Sure, maybe the Padres didn't mean to sign so many shortstops, but they did, and now it's starting to seem like they've shot themselves in the foot. I'm not really sure how they can reinforce their team without some trades, and hopefully for people who aren't best known for their time at shortstop. Until then, the San Diego Padres will remain the Gluttony spot on my 7 deadly sins list of baseball. Envy is classified as a sad or resentful covetousness towards the traits or possessions of someone else. Basically, jealousy turned all the way up 100%, and that's definitely a fit for the Los Angeles Angels. In recent years, we've started to see their little brother complex and how hard they've been trying to have the reputation of a similar Los Angeles team, the Dodgers. Honestly, I think it's funny that the Angels are even considered a Los Angeles team, even when they don't play in Los Angeles. They're located in Anaheim, part of Orange County. Why not call them the Anaheim Angels, or the Angels of Anaheim? I know the team think they're honoring their inception of where they were created, but I sense some envy in the air. But I think that discrepancy speaks to the envy of it all. There's a lot of overlap between the Angels and the Dodgers, whether it be their shared Southern California location, or the trading of players like legend Shohei Ohtani to the Dodgers just last year. Frankly, I'm not surprised that the Angels would envy a team like the Dodgers. Granted, I'm sure the Angels envy any team that finished the season with a record above 500 in the last 7 years. Next up is Pride, which is going to be a pretty obvious team in my opinion. They are prideful and talk a high game, and it's not really that surprising that they have such a massive ego when you look at their stats and awards. There is a big divide between the New York Yankees of history and the New York Yankees of now. See, the Yankees are considered by many one of the greatest sports team to ever exist, if not the greatest team in the sport of baseball. Whether it be iconography, it seems like the Yankees are film and TV's go-to baseball cap, or sheer stats. They are probably one of the most popular teams to ever exist, and for a good reason. If we look at the stats, the Yankees have numbers to walk the walk with a whopping 27 World Series titles. They have also won 40 American League pennants and 20 American League East Division titles. That's no small feat, and it kind of makes sense why Yankee fans are so quick to call them the greatest team to ever exist. And that's where the issue arises and why the New York Yankees ended up on the 7 deadly sins as the one and only Pride. They never shut up about how they're the greatest team to ever do the sport. Their fans, their team, their merchandise, their branding, all of it boasts about the fact they were once this incredible team and that it's impossible to ever get to that level of baseball skill again. But that's the thing. They were that team. The Yankees of today are a far cry from the New York team that won them all those awards and titles. In 2023, they ended the season 82-80, barely getting over the 500 threshold. Talk about embarrassing for a team that loves to boast about the fact that they have more World Series wins than any other baseball team to ever play the sport. It's annoying, and there's no other team that boasts in the same way that the Yankees do, which is almost impressive and earns them that pride spot without a doubt. That being said, the 2024 Yankees are looking really good so far. As of right now, I would almost think that the Yankees' pride is deserved given their 10-2 standing. If I was a betting man, I think we're going to see a much better performance from the Yankees this year than that abysmal 500 from last season. They might just be going all the way this year if they play their cards right and can finally earn that pride they so clearly have. Now, lust is an interesting sin because it's got so many layers and there are dozen upon dozens of ways to fall into this category. By definition, definition, lust is seen as wanting or desiring something so bad you'll do anything to get it, even if the actions are immoral. When you talk about it like that, it's tough to consider any other team in recent MLB history other than the Houston Astros and their massive cheating scandal. The Astros sign stealing was a huge deal and something that will likely affect their reputation for years to come. Fans don't take this kind of stuff lightly. Basically, the Houston Astros were caught recording opponents' signs in order for their batters to know throws and win games. There had been accusations for a long time after they'd won the 2017 World Series, the first time the team had ever done so in MLB history. As the accusations got louder and louder, an investigation was conducted by MLB officials, and it's become common knowledge that the Astros were found to have cheated throughout multiple seasons, including the 27 World Series, through sign stealing and electronic equipment. Imagine wanting a trophy so bad that you would do anything to get it, including cheating to such a degree that it would tarnish your team's reputation for years. Well, that's what the Astros did, and it's ruined their reputation for life. Even with an actual World Series win in 2022, they still get heat because of the scandal, and it's unclear when or if this animosity from fans for lusting after a trophy so bad that you cheat to win will ever end. And last but certainly not least, wrath, which is defined as uncontrolled feelings of anger, rage, or even hatred. Now, all of baseball fans feel wrath towards this team, but they also stuck out to me for their wrath on the field this season. This team is the Los Angeles Dodgers, without a doubt. Especially after several playoff failures, they seem adamant on taking their anger out on the rest of the league. To say they have a stacked lineup this season would be an understatement. Betts, Ohtani, Yamamoto, they have an all-star roster that's sure to rain down some wrath on the competition, and they've already began doing so early into the season. At the time of recording, the Dodgers just received the #1 spot in the power rankings this week. They are 10-4 and are the first NL team to reach 10 wins in the season. And it's not really surprising given the pretty incredible run they've had this week. Although the season started out pretty rough with a disappointing performance by Yamamoto in his debut game, he's come back in full swing, and Ohtani has been crushing it. But you know your team is doing good when he's ranked number 3 in the scoreboards. The real MVP is Mookie Betts, who's been shining this whole season. It's tough to beat a team like the Dodgers right now, especially with their bot team, and I feel like their recent streak of games and overall wins make them deserving of the wrath spot on our 7 deadly sins list. To make sure they stay on this list, please continue to give them your wrath on social media. And that about sums up our list of 7 deadly sins as MLB teams. Let me know if you would have swapped anything around or if you want to see these kind of videos in the future. Let me know down below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel.